I'll be speaking to Mark Arons. He's the lead attorney for the case of the Soulemane family. His office has announced that the parties involved in a lawsuit filed by the Soulemane family have agreed to mediation. So, good afternoon.
Hi, how are you?
Good. So the lawsuit your firm has filed is involved with the killing of Mubarak Soulemane. For those who are unaware of the facts of the case, what happened January 5th, 2020 in West Haven?
Well, this actually began in Norwalk when Mubarak, who at the time was 19, a community college student, went into an AT&T store and demanded to get a cell phone. We're still not sure whether he had a cell phone and it wasn't working or he lost his cell phone, but he had a kitchen knife, steak knife, with him, and apparently at some point he showed the knife to someone in the store, although he didn't actually threaten anyone. And they ultimately kicked him out, and he got into a Lyft vehicle. The Lyft vehicle pulled into a gas station. Mubarak demanded to use the Lyft driver's cell phone, and when the Lyft driver refused, Mubarak apparently slapped him on the back of the head. Lyft driver got out of the car, pulled a gun. At that time, the cops showed up, and the cops, I guess, saw Mubarak out of the car, and they also saw the Lyft driver who had a gun in his hand. So during the confusion, Mubarak gets into the car and takes off of the car. And I guess it's appropriate to say that Mubarak suffered from schizophrenia, so he was apparently having a bad day to begin with. And that led to a police chase from Norwalk up I-95 to West Haven. And Mubarak got off the exit in West Haven and was immediately surrounded by 3 or 4 police cars, and he actually rear-ended an SUV. So he was boxed in on all sides and had police with guns on both sides of the car. And within 40 seconds of the car being stopped, Mubarak was shot 7 times and killed by a state trooper.
And there's a criminal aspect to this that we can get into later, but you filed a lawsuit, a civil lawsuit. Who is being sued?
We sued 3 different state troopers. Trooper North, who is being criminally prosecuted for manslaughter. He was on the driver's side of the car, and he actually pulled the trigger and shot Mubarak 7 times, even though the windows were up and the doors were closed, and Mubarak had this knife on his lap. There was a state trooper also on the passenger side who used a taser against Mubarak once the window on the passenger side was shattered by a West Haven police officer. Then there was another state trooper who was behind the car who did nothing. And that's my allegation against that particular trooper. He just stood by and did nothing to prevent any of this. So those are the 3 state troopers. And there's also the West Haven police officer who broke the window on the passenger side, and a West Haven police sergeant who was also behind the car, Mubarak's car at the time, and he also stood by and did nothing. So we have claims against those officers for failure to intervene and failure to de-escalate.
Now, when did you, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
When did you file this suit? How long has it been going on?
I guess a little over a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it has, it's a civil lawsuit for money damages. And that lawsuit has actually been what we call stopped by the court because of this pending criminal prosecution. Because potentially what I do in the civil case, if I take depositions and I get discovery and ask for certified signatures from the police, that could be interfering with the Inspector General's ability to put witnesses on the witness stand who would otherwise, have pled the Fifth Amendment. So even though our lawsuit has been stayed or stopped, the court has given us permission to do some what they refer to as informal discovery without asking for affidavits or taking statements under oath, so that both sides can get some basic information from each other and then try to mediate and settle the case.
All right, for those who don't know the legal term, what is mediation?
Mediation is a settlement conference. I would call it a meeting between the parties. And then typically it's either an active judge who agrees to be the mediator, or a retired judge or a lawyer who acts like a judge. And it's a more informal process to try to settle a dispute. It's not binding. There's no appeal. There's no witnesses that testify, although the mediator can ask the parties, some questions about the case and their positions. And it's a lot of back and forth negotiating during the course of a day and try to come to a conclusion.
Now, up to this point, you've asked for damages. Has there been an offer on the part of these parties?
No offer. I wouldn't expect one, frankly. They're just going to wait till we show up at the mediation.
In your press release, you listed several people who might appear during the mediation. Could you talk about them?
Sure. And actually, they will not be appearing at the mediation or attending, but they are my experts who I would intend to use should this case ever proceed to trial. Because even though the trooper is being prosecuted, I still have to prove my civil case beyond a preponderance of the evidence. So I need police officers, for instance, as experts to testify about police training and protocol policies and what is acceptable use of force in this incident. So I've retained police officers, retired police officers, as is usually the case. One is the former police captain of the Los Angeles Police Department, and the others are retired lieutenant in the New York City Police Department. And the third is a MD, PhD at Vanderbilt University, whose expertise is the interplay between race, guns, and mental illness.
I see.
So I have their reports, and the mediator will have access to these reports.
And hopefully this will be settled, these damages for this very sad situation. It's been going on now 3.5 years by my calculation here. So this is a civil suit, but I did want to bring up the fact that the state trooper, Brian North, who shot Soulemane, has been charged with a crime, and the state of Connecticut is prosecuting. That's rather an unusual thing. What is happening with that?
Well, the criminal prosecution, as you mentioned, is very rare in Connecticut. This is the first and only prosecution of a law enforcement officer for shooting anyone in Connecticut during the past 17 to 18 years. So it's particularly rare and unheard of. And this only happened because of the new law that Connecticut has for the Office of the Inspector General, which happened after George Floyd. Connecticut took action to revise the laws and appoint someone else other than the state's attorney to investigate these situations, because as you and I know well, the state's attorney is part of the state system state troopers are part of the state system, and city cops are all on their team, as it were. So it's always been our position that, the fix is in, and, no cop is ever going to get prosecuted. But fortunately, in this situation, it changed. Every few months, the trooper has to show up in the criminal court in Milford for what they call either a status conference or a pretrial. It's a meeting with the lawyers involved and the judge to determine what's happening on both sides, the prosecution and the defense, how much time they need, what they need to do going forward, and to get some kind of a court schedule. So the next one, I think, is July 6th. And the trial's been scheduled for the first part of January 2024.
I see. Well, it's been a long time. I know that family is torn apart over this. I'm glad there's some progress, hopefully, with this. Thank you very much for this interview.
My pleasure, as always. Thank you for the opportunity.